As strange as it may sound to say out loud, there was once a period where England and Morocco were once part of the same country, or even France and Egypt, Italy and Turkey, Greece and Spain. Clearly, I'm referring to the Roman Empire, the most widely known empire in all of history, whose legacy has impacted dozens of countries around the globe, both directly and indirectly. But the Roman Empire didn't immediately fizzle out, instead, trudging on throughout history for several centuries. The Romans were succeeded by two distinct political entities, divided by West and East, with the latter being the more prominent of the two, and the Eastern Romans are known to us in the English speaking world as the Byzantine Empire. And although many may consider the Byzantines to be a relic of ancient history, their empire actually didn't completely fall until 1453, 2 years before the birth of Christopher Columbus, so just one on Earth happened to the Byzantines. Even though the Eastern Roman Empire will be referred to as the Byzantines for the remainder of this video for convenience sake, the Byzantines didn't consider themselves to be a separate entity from the original Romans, instead considering themselves to be a direct continuation of the Roman Empire, and even up until the fall of Constantinople, referred to their empire as the Roman Empire, or occasionally even Romania, as confusing as that sounds. This is because the split between East and West was slightly more amicable than is widely depicted, and rather than being a conflict over secession like the American Civil War, the Roman Empire was still considered a single empire even after the split, being governed by two monarchs for each of the two divisions in a similar manner to Austria-Hungary or other dual monarchs. One of the major factors in the division of the Roman Empire was the lingua franca, or common language of different areas of the empire. It's widely known that the western half, including Italy, France, Iberia, Dalmatia, and the Maghreb, was dominated by Latin, an Italic language which originated in the heart of the Italian peninsula, while the eastern half was dominated by Greek, a fellow Indo-European language with quite a different history. Now, there really was never any single Greek empire in the same manner as the Romans or Spanish or French, like many may have been led to believe in school. Instead, with the ancient Greek peninsula being divided between numerous city-states for as long as scholars have cared to keep track of. But the closest thing to a Greek empire would have definitely been the Kingdom of Macedonia under the rule of Alexandros III of Macedon, better known in the Western world as Alexander the Great. However, even before the rise of the Macedonians under Alexander, the Greeks had a unique position in the Mediterranean, facilitating much of the trade between those in Europe, Anatolia, the Levant, and North Africa. And for this reason, Greek became the language of trade and commerce in the region, especially in large port cities. Greek settlers in ancient Egypt, Phoenicia, and Anatolia contributed to the spreading of Greek architecture and culture and the Hellenization of areas outside of the traditional areas of Greek settlement, which is believed to be somewhere around modern central Greece. Greek city-states cropped up around the Aegean Sea and the Peloponnese Peninsula, Western Asia Minor, and other areas of Greece, and the original peoples of Asia Minor, the Indo-European Anatolians, gradually abandoned their old languages and culture in favor of Greek, although they were still divided. It wasn't until the conquest of Alexander the Great in the 3rd century BC that many of the city-states were united in their push against the Achaemenid Empire, during which Alexander swept through Southwest Asia, North Africa, and parts of Central and South Asia, and the influence of the Greeks expanded far beyond anything they could have imagined. Greek settlements and kingdoms were even established as far east as Afghanistan and the Indian subcontinent, a topic we discussed several months ago, and their legacy can still be seen in that area to this day. So by the time the Romans had conquered Athens a couple centuries after Alexander's death and the swift dissolution of his empire, many areas around Greece, including Lower Egypt, southern Italy, Cyrenaica, and Anatolia, were dominated by Greek culture. As many know, the western half of the Roman Empire was the shorter-lived of the two, being battered by a combination of Germanic tribes, Huns, and internal conflicts lasting a little under 2 centuries after the dual monarchy was established. The Eastern Roman Empire was also pummeled with advances by Vikings, Persians, and Arabs, as well as famine and disease, however managed to fortify their capital of Constantinople, which was historically known as Byzantium, hence where the Byzantines get their name from. After the complete collapse of the western half of the Roman Empire, the Byzantines managed to restore about 75% of the former Roman Empire at its height, reconquering Dalmatia, the Italian peninsula, and parts of the Maghreb and Iberia, although Constantinople remained the capital and the culture was predominantly Greek rather than Latin. For centuries, the Byzantines did indeed maintain the mantle of dominating the Mediterranean and Western world up until the emergence of a new power in the East. The Byzantines nearly lost much of their eastern territory to the Neo-Persian Sasanian Empire during the Byzantine-Sasanian War fought during the 7th century AD. However, they managed to push back the Persians at great cost to both armies, a decision which would prove disastrous for both. Out of the unforgiving deserts of Arabia rose the Rashiduns, an Islamic group that had been flourishing in the Arabian Peninsula under Muhammad, who single-handedly conquered much of the region before his death, a few years after the end of the Byzantine-Sasanian War. The Rashiduns barged through the exhausted defenses of the Byzantines and Persians so quickly that they were virtually unfettered by all organized military counterattacks by either powers, and the Levant, Egypt, and Persia quickly fell under Islamic rule. Even after the Rashidun Caliphate collapsed and was succeeded by other powers, the main factor driving the Islamic armies was neither a cultural nor political ideology, but a religious one, which proved incredibly effective in rallying troops, although the Byzantines still managed to survive for nearly 1,000 years in the Anatolian Peninsula before finally falling to the Ottoman Turks, and the fall of Constantinople in 1453 was the last nail in the coffin for the Roman Empire. But what happened to the Greeks and Greek influence in other parts of the former Byzantine Empire? As mentioned earlier, the predominant culture of the Byzantine Empire was Greek, but there were also very large minorities of other peoples such as Egyptians, Syriacs, Jews, and later on Slavs, and there really was no such thing as the Byzantine ethnicity. At the height of the Byzantines' rule in the 6th century AD, Greek was the native language of the Greek peninsula, Thrace, the coast of Anatolia, Cyprus, parts of Upper Egypt, Cyrenaica, Crimea, and parts of southern Italy, while it was used as a second language in many other parts of the empire. The majority of Egypt, however, was of native descent known as Copts, who spoke the Old Egyptian language, which was a member of the Afro-Asiatic language family, which included Berber, Arabic, Syriac, and Hebrew, and following the Arab invasion of Egypt and the Levant, the majority of Greeks and Copts were assimilated into the Arabic Islamic society. Coptic Christians have survived over the centuries despite no longer speaking the Coptic language, and today make up around 5 to 10% of Egypt's population and consider themselves to be ethnically distinct from other Islamic Arabic speakers of Egypt in a manner very similar to the Christian Maronites of Lebanon, who also may identify with ethnic Arabs or their historic pre-Arab, mostly Syriac or Phoenician identity. As for the Greeks, their largest concentration was formerly in Anatolia, and there were very large Greek minorities on the coast during the Ottoman era up until the Greek genocide in the early 20th century, which started a period of major hostilities between not only the Greek and Turkish states, but the people as well, with Turkey conducting a series of pogroms for decades up until the once large Greek community of Anatolia had nearly dried up completely. Similarly, ethnic Greeks in the Levant, Egypt, and the Soviet Union were almost entirely repatriated to Greece, despite many families living in those particular countries since the Byzantine era, and today there are very few ethnic Greeks remaining in the region, with only 100 to 200,000 spread out from Turkey to Egypt, although there are around 500,000 ethnic Greeks in these countries whose ancestors had converted to Islam and assimilated into the predominant Islamic societies. There are also small Greek communities in Apulia and Calabria in southern Italy known as Grecos, as well as neighboring southern Albania, although they are nowhere near their previous size. As I've mentioned in my video on the legacy of the Crusades, Arabic-speaking Christians in Lebanon and Syria are considered to be ethnically Arab by many sources, however have a far different origin, with most Arabic-speaking Christians belonging to the Greek Orthodox or Greek Catholic churches. Many members of the Greek Catholic, known as Melkite, or Greek Orthodox communities in the Levant speak the Arabic language and have mostly assimilated into Arabic society, but choose to identify as ethnically Greek instead. But varying sources give different accounts on ethnic self-identification. Combining the estimated 2 million Greek Orthodox and 1 million Greek Catholic Arabic-speaking Christians of the Middle East and North Africa, along with the Maronites of Lebanon and Coptic Christians of Egypt, gives a population of nearly 20 million people in the region today that could be considered to be descended from the citizens of the late Byzantine Empire that were not assimilated into Arabic or Turkish society. Although you'd certainly have a hard time finding someone loyal to the Byzantine Empire than their own modern country today. When Constantinople was surrounded by Ottoman troops in the April of 1453, facing certain defeat by the hands of Mehmet II, Sultan of the Ottomans, Constantine XI of the Byzantine Empire was given an offer to surrender the city, and in return would be spared his life, allowing him to rule in the Peloponnese Peninsula for the rest of his days. In reply, Constantine proclaimed, "To surrender the city to you is beyond my authority or anyone else's who lives in it. For all of us, after taking the mutual decision, shall die of our own free will without trying to save our lives." Although the city did indeed fall and the Byzantines forever defeated, their legacy still lives on today. Be sure to let me know your thoughts on the Byzantine Empire and the last remnants of Greek civilization in their once great empire. Oh, and a Merry Christmas to the Orthodox Christians of Egypt and elsewhere that celebrated Christmas yesterday, January 7th. And as always, thank you all for watching. This has been Mason, and I'll see you next time.